think I recognize your faces from yesterday. My name is Enrique Romero. I'm the Director of Legal Services at the New Mexico Acequia Association. We were blessed yesterday to have David Garcia, Dr. Garcia, play music for us and give an excellent presentation. For those of you that are here today for the first time, we're lucky again to have David with us, and he's going to again give us a presentation. David is a cultural anthropologist, and he works in our communities with music, and he does his ethnographic work through music. So again, we're very blessed to have him here today. Buenos días, David.
Buenos días desde Dios a todos. Mi nombre es David García, soy del condado de Río Arriba, de una placita que se llama San Antonio del Huache. I'm from Río Arriba. I'm from a community that's called San Antonio del Huache, which is just a little bit north of Española. And today I'm going to share with you, listening to the really informative talks that we were hearing yesterday. I kind of shifted gears, and it made me think immediately to a couple of pieces that I want to share with you today. The first of these pieces that I want to share with you is thinking back about, when talking about partition, talking about land grants being fenced, being denied access to a lot of the land grant members. It makes me go back to, culturally, how stories are told about these events at the time that they were happening. And one of the ballad forms that we have here in New Mexico, the corrido, is a very generalized term. So a lot of people put the term corrido to anything that talks that's a historical ballad. Sometimes they'll say certain songs are corridos. But in fact, when we look at that, they have a particular form that, they list historical dates. They have citations from the parties that participated in the story, and oftentimes they'll even include a citation by the singer who's saying, "I sang this song, and if I made any mistakes, make sure that you forgive those mistakes." So there's kind of a and so. The form that I'm going to talk about today is going to be is going to be related to looking at these communities that existed outside the villas, the Via Reales, the Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Santa Cruz de la Cañada, El Paso, del Norte. These principal villas where most of the population existed till a lot of land grants were being were recognized as buffer communities along the outside of the Rio Grande valleys. And so in these areas, we talk about a lot of people that were settling these areas that came from a lot of times indigenous backgrounds, African backgrounds, Afro-Mestizo backgrounds, and it's a very hybrid area in terms of where you have culture that is kind of connecting with Hispanicized culture. It's a process with Dr. The anthropologist Benito Cordova talks about the Genisanoization of these areas. Another person, Tomas Atencio, talks about a rise of Genisano consciousness during the 18th century. And so in this time, we have ballads that come out of this experience that are called inditas. And these inditas, they're not sung with a beat that is European in nature. It's not a waltz, like a lot of corridos, you'll have the voy a cantar un corrido. These ballads have a more indigenous rhythm, or they say that the third root of these communities is Afro-Mestizo rhythms that come from the Caribbean through Mexico to these areas. And so the first song I'm going to sing about is called El Cibolero. It's an Indita ballad that was recorded, was written down in 1861. It was the time when people would go out to the Llano Estacado to go hunt buffalo. These areas were outside of the domain of the Spanish crown. It was a very liminal space, and so people that were able to cross those borders, had a sense of interculturality. They shared culture with those Plains people, oftentimes, and they shared culture with a lot of people have written about this. And so, but I'll sing this ballad so you can hear it. This song talks about a cibolero who goes out, a very young cibolero who goes out there on his horse, and his horse, as you heard about yesterday about the warfare, people didn't have guns. Guns were very privileged weapon. People had lanzas, people had arcos y flechas. And so this young man, he had his name's Antonio Mestas. He had his lanza, his lance, and his horse tripped over, and the lanza impaled it. And one of the things about this is that he's buried outside of New Mexico. Symbolically, it's a huge loss for the communities here. To be, oftentimes culturally, people would identify themselves as being caballeros, being part of that horse culture, which was very in the culture of New Spain. It was a privilege given to only a few people that were. And so oftentimes people that dealt with livestock were able to have. So I'm going to get into this bit so you can hear this ballad. The second ballad I'm going to sing is actually a hymn. It's called it's the hymn of the Acequias. And so I'll sing both of these. Atención pido a la gente, pido por última vez. Adiós compadres amados del finado Manuel Mes. Adiós compadres amados del finado Manuel Mes. Caballo preto mentado, con deseos me quedé, verme en tu lomo montado, en los cíbolos pensé, pero me salió floreado el cálculo que yo eché. Caballo a santo estado, tú me la muerte me diste, con esa lanza de acero, el corazón me partiste, el suelo quedó regado, con mi sangre lo teniste. Mi compadre Mauricio Tapia fue el primero que me vio, desmontó de su caballo y en sus brazos me estrechó. Qué compadre tan ingrato, que ni Jesús me gritó. Cuando llega la noticia a Nuevo México entero, y que hoy como no sentirán la muerte de un caballero, y como no sentirán la muerte de un caballero. Cuando llegue mi sombrero, los llantos retumbarán, mi madre saldrá corriendo, mis hermanos llorarán, mi madre saldrá corriendo, mis hermanas llorarán. Templecito de mi pueblo, tus campanas doblarán, por un joven que en un tiempo te sirvió de sacristán, por un joven que en un tiempo te sirvió de sacristán. Adiós Cerro de Laureano, que de mi casa se ve. Adiós Madre Donaciana y Padre Juan de Dios Mes. Adiós Madre Donaciana y Padre Juan de Dios Mes. Desde que fui pequeñito, en mi cuerpo fue grabado que habría de ser calavera del llano del estacado, que habría de ser calavera del llano del estacado. El que compuso este indita fue un joven triste, incapaz, dispensivo y errado, y se escaso en notar, sepan todos de mi nombre, yo soy Cecilio Roybal. Para cantar esta andita se necesita tonada, para cantarla bonita, como la piedra labrada, como la cantó Roybal en un día en Punta de Agua. So that indita, is talked about by the writer Fabiola Cabeza de Vaca, who brings a very poignant term that when she talks about the loss of the land grant. She says, cuando vino el alambre, vino el hambre. When these land grants started became fenced, came the hunger. And so a lot of the opportunity to travel out towards to the Llano Estacado became very much enclosed. And I wanted to kind of just share that ballad with you. The last ballad I'm going to do it's more of a himno, it's a canción. It's called La Canción de las Acequias. And it's a song that we started singing probably about 15 years ago. It's a collaborative hymn that was composed by Cipriano Vigil, Roger Montoya, for a dance that was to teach young people about the acequia. And we've gone to a lot of different community meetings to sing this song, and it's a part of in terms of how these stories get circulated, how this knowledge about the acequia gets circulated. And I hope you guys. The last word talks about the idea about querencia, lo que yo me. La noche está llegando, so it's about the sun. It's an early morning song, but it's also a late day song. It's a song that you can wake up and meet the sun with. But it's also a song at the end of the day when the person's still out there working on what they love so much, what matters so much, what is their querencia, a place where they want to somehow in the future be the place where they become part of the land itself. Ya viene amaneciendo, yo sigo trabajando para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto. Ya vamos a la acequia van todos. Agarra ya la pala para limpiar el bordo. Agarra ya la pala para limpiar el bordo. Limpiaremos la acequia para traer el agua en la primavera. El agua es vida en la primavera. El agua es vida. Reparemos el jardín, las semillas sembramos de frijol, maíz y chile, y luego las regamos de frijol, maíz y chile, y luego las regamos. Ya llegó el otoño apenamos y damos las gracias por todo lo del campo y damos las gracias por todo lo del campo. La noche está llegando, yo sigo trabajando para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto, para mantener lo que yo quiero tanto. ¡Que vivan las acequias!
Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos. Thank you guys for getting here early this morning. Hopefully we'll fill these empty seats as the day progresses. My name is Arturo Archuleta. I am the program manager for the New Mexico Land Grant Council and the UNM Land Grant Studies program. And this morning we just wanted to say a few words to welcome you here today and give you a little bit more sort of information about the intent and purpose of this conference. Or CLE, I should say. This is actually a really exciting event for us. It's something we've been working on for several years now in the making. We planned on having this right before COVID hit. And unfortunately, as all of you who had registered, things got put on delay. But what's really sort of important about this CLE is it was an opportunity for us to provide some continuing legal education training for attorneys, hopefully for judges. This is kind of the first pilot that we put together. And it was also an opportunity for us to provide some education for the community and have a space where we can bring the community and some of these legal practitioners together. And that's a really important thing. One of the things that I constantly hear throughout I've been doing this for about 20 years, working with land grant communities on policy. And one of the things that I've constantly heard is this, folks have sometimes a hard time understanding, particularly from the agencies, why is there so much, why are communities so upset? Why are communities so angry? What is this reason for communities and sort of the distrust that they have for government and the distrust that they have for the Forest Service, for example? And really what it comes down to is just the injustices that our communities have suffered. And so, part of the purpose of the CLE is also to provide a glimpse into that history and a little bit of understanding so that when practitioners out there, they kind of can recognize why is it that these communities, what are they struggling for, right? And I've often heard, people say, well, that's the past. You got to get over it. We got to just kind of work on the future. You got to forget the past. And for us, it's not just the past, it's our past, and it's also our present, because a lot of these injustices have not been remedied. We have not actually gained the access to some of our former common lands that are now managed by federal agencies. And so not only is it our present, it's going to continue to be our future if we don't continue to advocate and struggle for the justice we've long sought, right? So, that's an important aspect of the work that's done today by our communities. And the reality is, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that fighting spirit. The New Mexico Land Grant Council, the UNM Land Grant Studies program, those were all born out of the efforts of the community. So it was folks from the community who said, we need to have more say and more empowerment, we need to have more opportunities, and that's really the impetus for the work that's got done. It's a collective communal effort. And that's a theme that you've heard yesterday, you're going to hear more about today, this notion of collectiveness, right, in the community. And so, this is really how this came about. We exist because of the notion that in the law there's potentially some remedy, and our communities have sort of worked on that. And so, one of the things that we've been doing is working collaboratively with the UNM Land Grant Studies program, working with the UNM School of Law. Particularly, we've been working with the Natural Resources Environmental Law Clinic, which was a pretty new clinic that started several years back. Professor Gabe Pasiniak is the actual clinician who kind of operates the clinic. And we've been fortunate to be able to work with him and folks like Adrian Oglesby, and as well as other professors like Cliff Villa, Jeanette Wolfley, who kind of started the clinic, and really incorporate some of the needs, the unmet needs of our communities from a legal perspective with the clinic and match them up. And we've had some students here now that are attending here today that actually work through that clinic. And it's a really great program, and I'll let Gabe speak a little bit more about the program and how this collaboration has really worked out well.
Thank you, Arturo, and let me add to Arturo's welcome to all of you, and I'm thrilled to be here. We've actually been working for several years now to put this together in part. So I'm relatively new here. This is, I believe, my 5th year teaching at UNM. When I came to the clinic, I was very fortunate that Jeanette Wolfley, my colleague who had founded the clinic, had reached out to the Land Grant Council and to the Acequia Association and said, our mission is to provide legal services to underserved communities, including land grants and acequias. And that's been a significant part of the work that we do in the clinic, and a very, very valuable part, both in terms of teaching our students about an important part of the law for practice here in New Mexico, and hopefully training them to be able to provide those kinds of legal services when they go on into practice, but also to learn about the culture of New Mexico and to really provide some help in meeting an unmet need. And so we've had a great experience doing that, and we're really fortunate in doing that. But in our collaboration with the Land Grant Council and the Acequia Association, I came to understand that there is really a broader need to educate attorneys and to have more collaboration with the law school, and not just attorneys, but judges. And so working with Adrian at the Yetton Center, with David Benavides at the New Mexico Legal Aid, with Enrique and Paula at the Acequia Association, of course the Land Grant Council, and the Land Grant Studies Program with Dr. Jacopo Bacco and Dr. Manuel Garcia Diego. We've worked for several years now to think about how can we add additional legal education content. And this is a result of that work. A lot of people worked very hard to put together all of this material. I'm learning a ton. I'm so happy to see some of our former students who are now practicing attorneys who have come back here to learn more. So I'm hopeful this is the start of more content. And we're thinking about what we can do after this so that it's not a one-time thing, but so that we can continue providing legal education services to practicing attorneys, to law students, to judges, and to members of the land grant and acequia community. So welcome all of you. I'm looking forward to another education-packed day.